Hello, hello, and welcome. We're going to jump in immediately because here's the thing. I think this is the lesson. This is the lesson to me of fall, of Halloween. It's going to give all those vibes. But I also will say that I shoved too much into this lesson, all right? And this one lesson, we're going to go over solfege. We're going to go over dotted rhythms, how to count those dotted rhythms. We're going to have movement breaks. We're going to have a listening analysis section. It has all the, all right? So if you are an elementary music teacher, this is going to be a lesson that you can use, for a bunch of different grades, depending on how much of it you use. Because again, I put a little too much into this. So if you are looking to recreate this lesson for yourself, go ahead, grab a piece of paper and a pencil, or you can stick to the end where I'm going to show you how you can get this lesson along with my entire curriculum for a free full month. All right, so let's go ahead. Did I say that I had everything? Did I say that I stuffed too much into it? If you've seen any of my videos, you know I'm a big visual learner. I like having things that are very visually stimulating for my students. That's going to get them actively engaged with me. So right now, what I'm going to be asking is for my students to go ahead, do all the different hand signs, mix them up to really challenge them, all right? Going over which is what, all right? But you notice I do for this one, because there are so many, I keep the solfege name, do, and then just have them do the hand sign, because I think both at the same time might be a little tough for my students personally. But what's great about this is you can always edit it so that that is gone, and then you're challenging them on what is the name and what the hand signs look like, all right? And did I mention that this also gives the fall vibes? Okay, so what they have to do is they have to plant the pumpkin seed, all right? They can only plant the pumpkin seed by, if you have a smartboard, going up to your smartboard and tapping to say what solfege this is. So that's on the first line. In fixed do on C, that's going to be me. Or if you have a projector, they're coming up to your laptop. Whatever you have to also give the student that needs just a very small movement break the chance to move. All right, they go up, they tap the board, a little pumpkin is planted. All right, am I a fall girl? I am a fall girl, 100%. All right, what I love about this is they had the name before, now they don't have the name. They just have where it lives, right? So that's going to be on the second space. Can they figure out where what solfege that is, so that they can go up and plant the pumpkin? All right, challenging them on different levels. I love it. All right, it's time to start our spooky story, and if you haven't heard it yet, we're going to go over just a little of it right now. But what I love is, and it's something that my students absolutely love, I don't know why, time to start our spooky story about pie. That's going to come up multiple times. I don't know if your students are as weird as mine. Having that about pie afterwards, they love it. They love it. Don't ask me why. So the story is called The Perfect Pumpkin Pie. And like I said, that totally already, just from the title, that gives the autumn vibes. But the Halloween vibes come from just how creepy this is, especially because we're going to pair it with our own creepy song. All right, so I don't have time to read this whole thing right now, and just as a friendly reminder, if you can, make sure that you are either grabbing this book from your local library, right? You are buying this book from your school's budget, whatever you can do, so that we are supporting these amazing authors who make these books that are just so easy to make learning so effective and engaging for our students. All right, so like I said, I won't have time to read the whole thing, but to sum it up, there's this old grumpy man, Old Man Wilkerson, and he's a little rude to his wife, if I'm being honest, and he's like, about time, I want to eat some pie, and I use my old grumpy man voice, because again, the kids love it. You might not. We'll keep going. Mrs. Wilkerson cuts a slice of pie and puts it on a small plate. She held the steaming pie under Mr. Wilkerson's nose. After we pass on, she said in her sweetest voice, there'll be no more pie. Huh, shouted the old man, grabbing the plate. Then I ain't going, right? He's about to eat the pie. He ends up dying, all right? So maybe your school isn't going to be ready for something that is this creepy, but maybe it is. My school is definitely a little bit more open. It depended on the class sometimes, if I thought that my students would be able to handle this, or if I thought, you know what, this is not going to work for this class. So obviously use some discernment for this. For me, it's a very funny story that my students absolutely are obsessed with. Mrs. Wilkerson goes, she buries her husband, Mr. Wilkerson. No one ever heard from Mr. Wilkerson again either. He was, after all, dead. Or was he? And then I say, what a spooky start to a story. We need to add in the correct solfege because we're going to add a spooky song for our spooky story. So then we go ahead and we use the skills that they were just working on. Now you might see that there are already a couple rhythms in here that are definitely going to be a challenge for our students on their journey to music literacy. And this lesson will also be great to talk about minor scales. And it starts right here. So after you add in the solfege, I go over to my piano and I just play it. And it's kind of happy and it's jaunty, and then I say, doesn't really feel creepy though. It doesn't really feel like Halloween. Let's try this. Suddenly, oh my goodness, what a shift. Pumpkin, pumpkin, pumpkin pie. I must have one before I die. My students love the creepy energy. We put it with our solfege hand signs. It's a great time. We then go back to the story. In the story, a little boy moves in with his grandmother and things start happening, all right? Mr. Wilkerson's ghost comes and he says that he wants pie, all right? So now and it's all written in my lesson plan. I really don't have time to go over each section. You can feel the natural moments to go from the book to something more engaging and interactive for our students. For me, it's whenever I see my students maybe starting to wiggle in their chairs and I know I need to get them up. I need to get them moving. I need to get them singing with the hand signs. I need to effectively engage my students because music is movement and movement is learning. We have to get our students feeling the music so that it matters to them. It makes the fundamentals of music make sense. So now we sing through it one more time because the ghost just said, pumpkin, pumpkin, pumpkin pie. I must have one before I die. We sing it and then we say, let's take a look at this creepy rhythm. First things first, we're going to need help from a great big dot, all right? And what I love about this is, again, something like a dotted rhythm can be really hard to just imagine in your head. So making it very visually stimulating for my students, walking them through it, to me is a great way to engage my students now. In not just singing it, so they've already sang it, right? Now I'm going to have them see it, and in just a little, we're also going to have them feel it. And again, I just love that about music is it never has to be one sense. We can bring in a whole bunch. All right, but if you add a dot, suddenly it doesn't go from 2 beats, it goes from 3. How? That's because the dot adds half of what the note is worth. What's half of 2? 1 beat. All right, by itself, the note's worth 2 beats, but if you add a dot, now suddenly it's worth 3 beats. 1, 2, 3, right? Next, we're gonna look at the dot from our creepy rhythm. How many beats does an eighth note get? Half a beat. Now add in a dot. What's half of a half? All right, this can be tough. All right, what I do is I kind of, depending on the age, if my students are doing fractions, we might do the math out together, or I really just try to go through this very quickly because I say that may sound tough, but it feels easier in the music. Let's really take a second and feel those key rhythms. Pumpkin, pumpkin, pumpkin pie. I must have one before I die. Right? We'll really take a second to feel those rhythms. Maybe you're having them sway to the music, whatever it is, so that they're feeling it. Maybe you have them jump on those 16th notes at the end. That's always been very helpful for me too. Back to the story about pie. All right, we go back, then we come back. Mr. Wilkerson, now he doesn't just want pie, he has certain standards about the pie. So then we add in the solfege, and then we add in, you'll notice there are a couple more rhythms in there that are a little tricky. All right. I must have one before I die. It must be round and brown as toast, or I'll haunt this house like a hungry ghost. That's what it said there, if you couldn't see past me. All right, we go back to the story. So if you're looking to get not only this lesson, but my entire curriculum for free, I'm going to have a video that breaks down farther what is included in the Soaring Scarves Academy membership. But for right now, let me give you a really quick synopsis. When you're a member of the Soaring Scarves Academy, you not only get access to my entire curriculum, but you also get 3 new lessons every single month that all come out the second Friday of the month. But what I love is having been open for the last now 4 years, that's really not all you get. All right, you also have 20 plus hours of my professional development. I walk you through some of my favorite movement breaks that to me are just the tools that we all need to keep in in our teacher tool belt. We have assessments that have created specifically with movement in mind. We have our 5-week Soaring Scarves challenge, because if 20 hours of professional development sounds like too much for you, I have broken it down into 5-minute little increments. And of course, the reason that all of this started, we have my scarf dances, both the teacher breakdowns, so how you can learn with me, or the follow-alongs, where you can just put me up on the board and I'll walk your students through some amazing classical movement. Tempo, texture, rhythm, pitch, all of it are going to be found in these scarf dances, but put into your student's body to, again, make it make sense. Now, obviously, this was just a quick run through, but if you're a teacher who is constantly stressed about school the next day, about not having enough time to lesson plan, about struggling with behavior management, if you're a teacher who's constantly questioning, are you giving effective experiences to your students in a way that makes their learning matter more, then go ahead and try the Soaring Scarves Academy for 1 free month. Grab the lessons that you want, and if after a month you decide it's really not for you, then you will have the first month refunded to you, no problem. So with that, let's jump back into the story. Did you see a group of rhythms that look a little different from the last part of the song? Talking about now these 8th note, 16th note mixes, all right? Let's see how we would count them. Again, this is something that if you were just to explain to me is not as effective as if we walk them through. Think about how you would count this rhythm and think about how you would count this rhythm. All right, barred 8th notes plus barred 16th notes. This is a mix of both, all right? Think about how we count this. Sometimes they mix which part looks like an 8th note. 1 bar at the top. Which part looks like 16th notes? 2 bars at the top. All right, together they make and then we count them. We take the 1 from the beginning and we take the and from the end. All right, careful, now I switched it. This looks a little bit different. Can your students do this on their own? Can they analyze how they would count this based on where the 16th notes are, right? And where the 8th note is, right? And how we would count it, okay? And then we go back to the story about pi. We know how to count these rhythms, but how about the one that we looked at the beginning, which is a little harder to figure out how to count? All right, let's see how we would count this new rhythm. For now, let's keep it paired with a 16th note at the end, all right? Remember, a dotted 8th note is worth 3/4 a beat. And again, that sounds challenging for a lot of students, so this is how I describe it. Remember that a dotted 8th note is worth 3/4 a beat. You can also think of that as 3 out of 4 16th notes, because each 16th note is worth 1/4. So if you have 1 16th note, 2 16th note, 3 16th note, that's 3/4 a beat, all right? When we see these rhythms grouped together, the dotted 8th note takes place of 3 of the 16th notes, but that still means that 1 of the 16th notes is left over at the end, all right? Think about how we would count. Still doing the same thing. Find the 8th note, find the 16th note. Make sense? To me, that's just, as someone who struggled, I remember in elementary school, to learn some of these key concepts, I feel like if it was just visually stimulating, like I'm trying to make it, I might have had an easier time. And I definitely see my students having an easier time. So hopefully yours do too. Awesome. How do we count it? 1, Then they can try it out with a little rhythm practice. This is one I found on YouTube. The creator is amazing. Check it out for sure. But I find this, it's slow. So many of these dotted 8th notes into 16th note rhythm pairs, they tend to be really fast, which is really hard for my students. So I like to do a very slow play along to start. This is already slide 55. We're not done. The slide goes all the way to 73. Did I say that there was a lot in this? There was a lot in this. Back to the story about pi. Finish adding in the solfege. This is now the entire song. I now don't go over the dotted half note, and that is then connected to an 8th note, and I don't talk about the dotted quarter note barred in with the 8th note. To me, my students have already gone over some tougher rhythms. That was a lot for me, but the great thing is you can. If your students have already done this, then you can just add this in as well, which is why I say this is really, you can just be singing this and doing this song with kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, maybe not kindergarten, maybe that'll be a little tough. Maybe. I don't know. But maybe you're doing that, or maybe you're working with your students on just the rhythms that I walked through, or maybe you have older students and you're challenging them to also do these connected rhythms. Maybe you're challenging them to everyone get a boom whacker and play through this. Maybe you're working on recorder and they know this, E flat. They know these different ones. Maybe you're working with just getting your students to sing in a way that's fun and engaging and is perfect for Halloween as you turn the lights off and let things get just a little spooky, right? It doesn't just stop there. You finish the entire song, which I should finish for you. So we'll do the whole thing one time just so that everyone here's how I would do it, right? Pumpkin, pumpkin, pumpkin pie, I must have one before I die. It must be round and brown as toast, or I'll haunt this house like a hungry ghost. It must be perfect, or a ghost I'll stay and haunt this house and never go away. So fun. So fun, so engaging. I'll have my students up and creeping around the room. I have my students up and singing it in their most theatrical way. It's such a fun song. It's such a fun song. I was glad to be able to have this song pop into my head. The words also obviously helped by being so good by such a good author. So great. All right, keep on going. Back to the story about pie. The end. You finish up the story, which I'm not going to tell you how it ends. Go ahead, check it out for yourself. So fun. Or is it? Our spooky story was even spookier because of how our pumpkin pie song sounded. Can you tell the difference between songs that sound creepy or don't? Now remember, throughout the entire lesson for here, I had my students singing, I had them critically thinking, I had them learning different rhythms. I probably had some instrument out of some sort at some point. I think in past ones when I couldn't even get my students really on boom whackers because I didn't have enough of the accidentals, I just got them on percussion instruments, right? Either way, I've had my students singing, I've had them learning some new mixed rhythms, I've had them in some way, shape, or form playing along, and I've definitely had them up and jumping to the rhythms and moving to the rhythms and feeling some of these more tougher rhythms, all right? But now, they've still been sitting for a while, so it's time for a movement break, in my opinion. Is it creepy or not? Click the pumpkin, which you'll see in a second, and listen to the music. Then it's time to move. If it's creepy, which I've had this done where I either have my entire classroom move, or I have one student, or maybe 2 or 3, depending on, their confidence level, stand at the front of the room. They decide what they're listening to. Is it a creepy song or is it not a creepy song? And if it's creepy, then they can do things that then the rest of the class has to guess while they mirror what they're doing. So one student, if they're the leader of the group, then they're up and they're stirring the cauldron and they're doing spells or whatever it is. And my students then have to guess while they mirror it. And I always have it, high expectations are definitely necessary for this. But that's with every movement break, right? That doesn't mean that we don't do the movement break. That means that we make the movement break matter more by having our expectations through the roof to make sure that our students are safe, but also having a great time. Is it creepy or is it not? Click on the pumpkin. Now, I also do a lot of scarf dances to classical music. And William Tell is a song that my students will have already known. And so they might do some of the scarf dances. Doesn't matter to me, but they're moving, right? They're, again, doing either, probably for this one, I would say a movement that is not creepy because William Tell's Rossini, not the creepiest. All right, then they move on to the next one. Again, listening first. In the Hall of the Mountain King. Definitely creepy. All right, so on and so forth. I think there's 2 more. Again, some are creepy, some aren't. It's an easy way to not only get them analyzing some music, are they listening? Are they hearing some things that tell them what's creepy? Is it minor? Is it quieter? Is it more staccato than others? Talk about what they're hearing and why that gave them the creeps or why it didn't, right? And then, and again, I said I put too much into this, but if you have time, which if you're trying to do this in one lesson, you won't. I'm going to tell you right now, unless you have an hour and a half with your students, you're not going to have enough time. But that's why I love using this, because it's not just a one-off lesson. If you have this lesson, you can use this 2 times. If you're also playing along with the song, you can use this lesson 3 times. Yeah, there's a lot in it. And I love making material that is going to last my teachers. So I hope it lasts for you. Why are some songs creepy and some are not? Let's find out why. All right, this is if your students have also worked on the treble clef. We go ahead, we walk through some of those notes and what is a scale? An ordered sequence of patterns or notes. Okay, the scale starts on C and ends on C, but something now is up with this scale. Does it sound spooky to you? Probably not there, but how about now? Does it sound spooky? All right, talk about what minor scales are. Build a minor scale, and then at the end, if you want, what could be spookier than a quiz? So grab a cheeky little assessment on can they hear the difference between major and minor. And if you want, I'm out of breath, but at the end you can also do a fun play along to Vivaldi's Autumn Movement 3 with some of those rhythms that we talked about. Mainly I dotted some dotted rhythms. It is in 12/8 time, so does it pair perfectly with this lesson? No. But is it sometimes just nice to end with a rhythm play along? 100%. You can also find that rhythm play along on my YouTube channel, along with a full scarf dance also to Vivaldi's Autumn, and some ideas for some really fantastic lessons as well. So make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow along, because I'm so happy to say that this YouTube channel might be new, but it is definitely going to be growing. So thank you for coming along on this journey. I hope this was helpful, and happy playing.